Then you'll have to unmute, please, Paul. You're still muted, Paul.
There now. Did I get unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted, and we have a picture of Brian.
All right. It's amazing how this works. Sometimes if I get the right buttons at the right time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and family. It's gratifying to have you join us again this evening on the Book of Mormon Perspectives Forum. I do want to extend an invitation. While it's a little bit premature, perhaps, I know I need to do it now. Robert Cook and Deb have agreed, volunteered to help out with another forum, which is called the Peace Perspectives Forum, which will begin this Saturday coming at 1 p.m. on the same link. That Peace Perspective will have Wednesday Jones and Rainbow Eagle, who have been regularly part of our participants, speaking about the peace perspective of racial justice. And since you're acquainted with them, I think most of you are. Therefore, to be able to support them in this first of what I anticipate will be 12 months of Peace Perspectives Forum. This one on racial justice in February 15, and these are on Saturday at 1 o'clock to accommodate European participants that have indicated they would like to share with us. And so we'll be on typically in the middle of a month, but it'll be on Saturday at 1 o'clock with Robert conducting the technology and Deb serving as the moderator as she does here, and with me serving as host. So I'm looking forward to this exercise. In February, we'll be addressing the issue of nonviolence and Andrew Bolton from Great Britain will be one of the moderators, as well as Mr. Sayer from Australia and Anderson from Washington. And so people who are very much involved in the peace and justice movement will be moderating that section. And then we have another session scheduled just about every month, and I'm delighted with the range of people we have. In April, it is our colleague Earl Watt, who will be addressing us on the end of hunger, along with the staff from Outreach International. And so to be able to use the same link that you use for this forum on that Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock forum is the invitation I'm wanting to extend to you, because I really anticipate that as people of peace, as I perceive you, you will want to participate. Tonight, however, we are getting to participate with Brian Stubbs, who has volunteered for this session, and it's rather an exotic experience because he has been in communication with Rainbow Eagle, for he has found apparently some strong fossicular cognates between the Semitic languages and the root family of the Choctaw. And so Rainbow Eagle has agreed to come next week and respond. But tonight we get the presentation by Ryan Stubbs, the linguist, to help us understand this interconnectedness of the languages. To me, it's a fascinating study, because while I dig in artifacts in archaeology and try to show the relationships between artifacts, he finds the artifacts in the words themselves. And so when you find those words having common roots, those are fossicular cognates, as I like to call them. They got that way because they're of a common heritage. And to be able to appreciate those common heritages in our languages shows relationships that are otherwise difficult to find. And while in some cases may be disputable, once you find a whole bunch of them, then you know that there's got to be a connection. Anyway, Brian Stubbs has taught English and linguistics at the College of Eastern Utah San Juan campus. He earned his MA in linguistics from the University of Utah, and his PhD in Hebrew and other Semitics are equal 3 dissertations. His books, Morsels for the Mind and the Change in Languages from Nephi to Now, have been strikingly excellent books as far as I'm concerned, and so I recommend them to you. They offer informational and thinking skills, challenges that are to be highly recommended in this forum. And he is among the leading publishers of articles on the Uto-Aztecan language family and linguistics journals. And he and his wife, Sylvia, are the parents of 5 children. And he's returning to update his research on the fascicular cognates tying Semitic to Uto-Aztecan language families. And this evening, to the parent family of the Choctaw. Let us pray together. Creator of the echoes through which we apprehend the word, whose voice resonates through the multiverse, its thunders, its whispers, through spiritual vibrancy to be heard. The Spirit calls us together on this Book of Mormon Perspectives Forum on Zoom this eve to explore, examine the roots of meaning. Now words become so central to what we believe. We affirm our belief in you, dear God, awesome creator that you are, and join our thinking skills together in an exercise to explore the depths of word meaning, and especially the words from your Son, Jesus Christ, our superstar. We do so in a world divided by politics, greed, racism, and war, with crises today in Ukraine, Gaza, Myanmar, Sudan, Haiti, and hunger, freedom, issues that cut to our human mortal core. Well, and as we move our focus from the pain on earth to the joy you invite us to embrace, to share, to be, we recognize how fortunate we are to have this opportunity to learn, to share, to greet each other in appreciation of the sonder, the indwelling of the divine in each person that you invite us to see. So we ask for your blessing, that patience, kindness, understanding be conferred as we are led by Brother Stubbs in his remarkable exploration of the ties across cultures and echoes of your word. And we pray in the name of the Holy One, the voice of the heavens, Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen. Should be able to stop the share. All right. Brother Stubbs, thank you so much for coming to share with us again. And all the rest of you that have come to join us this evening, may you be blessed by something holy as you participate in this forum. Brian?
Okay, very good. Can you hear me first of all?
We can hear you. Your
Hey,
face
good.
is fuzzy, however.
My face is fuzzy. Yeah, I guess I've got a light over there. But I probably don't even need these glasses. I think my print is big enough. Yeah, my face is fuzzy, isn't it? I've got here my file that tells me the steps of how to put this on. Let's see, it says click share screen. And then in the white boxes, click the one showing my PowerPoint. Yep, I believe that's it right there.
We're not seeing your share screen yet.
I think I'm at top red box. Stop share. Let's see. I'm just trying to figure out how to get this on there. Top of red box. Hmm.
Do you have the share
Says,
screen at the bottom?
yeah, I hit the share screen.
Okay, we're not seeing it. Are you on multiple screens or are you just on one computer?
I'm just on one computer. I'm just going by these instructions that was given 6 months ago. It says click share screen. Then it says if the white boxes, double click the one showing your PowerPoint. I did that. Then it says at top of red box, stop share. That must be when
That's
I'm
when you
done,
want to
right?
stop it.
Right.
The fact that it's
Okay.
saying
So,
stop share says he is sharing from his side. Sounds like the problem's on our side, Deb.
We don't have to do
um,
anything on our side.
well, I've got,
Go ahead and stop sharing and try it again.
okay. You can't see anything, huh?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, let me minimize it. Okay, let's try this again. Share. And then it says, okay, it opens a white box. And then
Evelyn, if you know what he needs to do, please chime in because I'm not understanding your instructions.
Okay, at the bottom, when he brings his screen up what he wants to share, then he clicks
yeah,
on
I've got
that.
this.
Oh, there's another spot that says share. If you don't share that, it won't come up. At the bottom of your screen, there should be another little box that says share.
Oh, share. Okay. Yeah, that's what I didn't see.
Okay, here you come.
Did that
All
work?
right, now
Yeah.
you're on. There you go. Thanks, Evelyn. Appreciate that.
Lexical infusion.
Yeah, glad you put that in. And glad you told me that. Okay.
Thank you,
Let me
Lexical infusions common to Uto-Aztecan, Muskogean, and Quechua. Wow, that reaches across 2 continents.
yeah. In fact, what we're going to do, we talked about Uto-Aztecan, I don't know, what was it, 6 months ago? And some of you were at that, and Uto-Aztecan has a whole bunch of interesting stuff. In fact, I'll just explain that a bit. And what's interesting is that the Muskogean language family, of which Choctaw and Chickasaw, Alabama, well, I can read it here. In saying that lexical or word infusions exist common to the language families of Uto-Aztecan, Muskogean, and Quechua, I do not mean that these language families are genetically related, for they are not descended from a common source. However, most languages have been subject to outside influences, whether major, like in language mixtures, or less significant, like certain numbers or bodies of words being borrowed from one language or coming from a people mixing into another language family. The Hebrew, Aramaic, and Egyptian vocabulary in Uto-Aztecan is a high percentage. It's like 80 to 90% of the words, of the most common words, uh, to the most to most Uto-Aztecan languages are from Hebrew, Arabic, and Egyptian, a huge percentage. The percent is much lower in Muskogean and Quechua. Those language families are entirely different or unrelated language families. Nevertheless, they have perhaps 20% as much as Uto-Aztecan and many of the same words and sound changes. But even 20% is still a significant amount and worth looking at. And that's what we're going to do tonight. This is the Uto-Aztecan language family. Can you see this movement of my little thing on the
Yes.
screen? Yeah, up here in the southwest, we have the Numic branch, and we have a whole bunch of Uto-Aztecan languages in the Los Angeles area, and Hopi over here, and a whole bunch here along the west coast of Mexico, and then a whole bunch of dialects of Aztec or Nahua down here. And we talked about that last time. We won't go over that. But what we're going to do now is look at the Muskogean language family. Is a similar language family located in the southeast United States, consisting of Choctaw, Chickasaw, Alabama, Coasati, and Creek or Muskogee or Seminole. It goes by all three names, depending on author, or Hichiti, Miccosukee. So it's a much smaller language family. Uto-Aztecan has about 40 languages. Muskogean has 6 to 8, depending on how you want to divide them. And this is a map of our North America. And in the red is the Uto-Aztecan language family. Over here in the blue is the Muskogean language family in the southeast United States. Chickasaw and Choctaw are kind of on the west side of that language family. And we're going to look at some things that I think are very interesting. For example, last time we talked about the Egyptian word hotpeh, and it means to be peaceful or peace. It also means for the sun to set. It also means to bury a person or something, or offer sacrifice. And it also means for the hair to fall out. It has quite a variety of meanings. In Uto-Aztecan, we have hopi or hupi, and it's the TP combination there combined to make a doubled P in Uto-Aztecan, and that happens often in languages. It happened a whole bunch of times in English. For example, legal, in legal became illegal. The NL became a double L, and irresponsible became irresponsible. But quite a variety of meanings. Notice that in Muskogean, I think it's in Chickasaw and in Choctaw also. I was hoping that Rainbow Eagle could be here tonight, but Hopi means some of the same things.
Brian, he
Peace.
is on.
Hey, good.
He has joined
Peace
us.
for the sun to set and to bury. And in Uto-Aztecan, Hopi or Hupi also means peace, to go down, for the hair to fall out. So Uto-Aztecan has about 3 of these 5 meanings, and Muskogean also has about 3 of the 5 meanings. That's quite interesting. Also in Egyptian, Irit, and the dual for 2 eyes, Iriti. And in Muskogean, you've got Iti, I, which again is very typical of a doubled consonant there, just doubling, or 2 consonants, doubling it like this. Also in Egyptian, we have, it only shows the consonants in Egyptian, P, D, S, and the D goes to T consistently. And so padas, or whatever the vowels were, means to beat flat or to flatten out. And in Uto-Aztecan, that's pitasa, means to flatten. Same consonants, same meaning. And in Muskogean, patasa, to spread flat. In Egyptian, this is a pharyngeal H, and that pharyngeal H is a deep H, and it goes to goes with a round vowel like O or U in Uto-Aztecan quite consistently. So chuti, vapor, utsi, dew or frost, and for a T to go to a tsa, that C is a TS sound. When you got a high vowel after it, is real common. In Muskogean, you have hotonti. In Egyptian, na'i, and this line usually goes to W in Uto-Aztecan, and also in Phoenician. I mean, the Phoenician ein symbol was a circle, and that became Greek O and Latin O and English O. So Nai would means to travel or traverse an area, would be Nawi or Nawa, which is what we have in Uto-Aztecan. And then Nowa means to go in Muskogean. LBB are the consonants for a fire to burn or to bake. Libi with a double B in Muskogean means a flame, burn, cook. Hebrew malk or melech means king, and O means its or his. So this would be like the king or the chief of a city or a tribe or an area or a group. And so Malko, its king. Muskogean, Minko, chief. And I'm not sure how the accents are on that. Rainbow could tell us that. And in Uto-Aztecan, Mungwi, again, the LK often goes to an NK. And it did in both of these languages. Also, KTS is a root that means to grind. And in Hebrew, we have kitush, and in Choctaw, kitush is pestle or pounder, almost identical to Hebrew kitush, to grind, or grind, the noun of a verbal noun of grind. Also, there's a noun maktesh, which is a mortar or a grinding stone, and it's mata in Uto-Aztecan. There's also a matash, which is even closer in one Uto-Aztecan language. Kiti is a mortar, and so it kind of looks like some of these others. You also have yapka, he cries in Hebrew. The BK almost always loses the B when that's a consonant cluster like that. When those two are together, the B is almost always lost. So you only have the K left over. And that's exactly what we find in Uto-Aztecan, yaka, to cry. And also in Muskogean, yakan. Some of the languages have N more regularly on the end of a verb. Another one is the root noon, and it has a verbal form, nan. So both noon and nan, two different vowelings, have these meanings: to multiply, to increase, and also fish, because fish multiply greatly, and nani or nana, mother, which is the one who bears or multiplies. And in Muskogean, you have nani, fish. In Uto-Aztecan, you have nan, and nana in various languages, meaning mother. So again, both Uto-Aztecan and Muskogean have forms of this Semitic word having to do with meaning mother and fish, from the root to multiply. Very interesting is that in Aramaic, the word for I is ana, ana. In Uto-Aztecan, it's shortened to n, but in Choctaw and Creek, it's anaat, and which is really interesting because it even has all the same sounds and even the glottal stop of Aramaic. Also, in Egyptian is the verb or noun of ein en ka, which means to live or be alive. And remember, the ein goes to W or a round vowel. And you have in Muskogean, you have Creek, winaki, alive. And again, the ein matches the W, the N, and the K matches the almost K in Egyptian. You also have ok, to live, in other Muskogean languages. Waka, to fly. In Aramaic, agap, wing. And in Uto-Aztecan, you have two different Semitic dialects that join in Uto-Aztecan, and Muskogean matches the top one, Wakapu, which has all of the consonants of Aramaic. Muskogean has two of the three. Also, Hebrew Shaul, fox, or for the feminine, female, fox would be Shaulah. And interestingly, the Muskogean word for fox is Chula. Also, Hebrew Sukkah, hut, booth, shelter. Muskogean, Chukah, house. And we're about half done with the Muskogean. Then we'll look a little bit at Quechua. Shanai or Shana in Hebrew means to double or fold, but in Arabic it's Thanai, and in Aramaic it's Tanai. Okay, and now remember that Uto-Aztecan has a lot of Aramaic. It usually has more Aramaic than Hebrew. And it happens to be the Muskogean form, Tanai with a T, matches the Aramaic, just like it matched the Aramaic of I, the Ana'a. The Hebrew would be Ani, and it doesn't match that, but it matched the Aramaic. And again, fold or roll, Tanai with the suffix li is identical to Aramaic. Also, panai, to twist or turn or braid, Hebrew panai, and Uto-Aztecan pani, to turn. Uto-Aztecan also has a participle puni, like Hebrew pone, but Muskogean doesn't have that one. Also, samem, to poison. Now, when I don't know if you've ever, one time I ate I just nibbled on a poisonous root, and it made my mouth go numb. Poison causes numbness. So the Semitic word means to poison or poison, while both Uto-Aztecan and Muskogean words mean numb. Uto-Aztecan samem, almost identical to Hebrew samem, and the Muskogean word simuha is a verb form with a feminine object, simuha. It matches that one. Charash, remember that pharyngeal H that we see in charash, engrave or plow. Choso, we have a doubled S for this RS together. So charash or charsh or harsho, to engrave it, write it, is word for write or written in Muskogean. Talga, the word for snow, the. Taka in Uto-Aztecan. Talkin, verb for freeze in Coasati. Selim or salmo, or different vowelings, means image or semblance. Muskogean, Shilom Bish. The ish is added probably, but Shilom is identical to the Semitic word for image or semblance, and it means shadow or spirit. A shadow is the same shape as whatever's making the shadow. And to sit, Yasipa, Yashiva in Hebrew, and or Yashibu, plural. Yoshib, transitive, to set something. Yushav, to be put down, left behind. Well, technically we have Yasipa and Yasipu, both the singular and plural of the basic verb. And Muskogean has Yosoba, which is just a slight variant of this one. It means to be lost or misplaced or stray. Well, when you put something down, leave it behind, that's what happens, is it gets lost or misplaced. Here's another one, Taka in Uto-Aztecan, Dakar in Aramaic. And the Muskogean is like, it has this ha prefix, but the tak, like Uto-Aztecan taka, but it has an extra prefix, hatak. But neither one, both of them are like the Aramaic, not like the Hebrew. The Hebrew would be hazakar with a Z, not a T. And zaneb means to attack from the rear. Zanab means tail. Uto-Aztecan doesn't have that root, but Muskogean does in Hazimbish, Now this needs a little explaining. The M comes from N. When N is next to a B, it becomes a bilabial like the B. So a simbish for tail, and that's another word for zanab is tail. But also in Muskogean we have tanap, to be on the other side against somebody or some group, to make war. Well, that's interesting because the Hebrew word, which if it were Aramaic would be danip, is a whole bunch like the Muskogean word, which means to attack from the rear, and the meaning changed to simply make war or be against, with, specifically from the rear being lost, but both of them are fighting or being at war. Semitic sib, to be old or gray-haired. Another form in Hebrew is seba, gray hair or old age. And Uto-Aztecan, we have Warihio Aseba. And in Muskogean, we have CP, to be old, a whole bunch like the basic root Sib. Anyway, that's all I listed. There are more, but that gives you a flavor of what exists in Muskogean. Now let's look at Quechua. Quechua is the one that's medium green. There, right there is a swath of Quechua. Right here is a long swath of Quechua languages, and I think up here is, and there's more in Colombia, and there's some in northwest Argentina. But Quechua is the medium green color in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and northwest Argentina. There are 5 to 7 million speakers of the Quechua languages, located mainly in the northern Andes, the northern half of the Andes. Well, if you count these Argentines, it might be the northern 2/3 of the Andes. All these other colors are other language families, which also have some interesting stuff that I've noticed, but I haven't had time to look into all of them very thoroughly. But hey, let's look at some stuff that is in the Quechua languages. Egyptian tur or tor is the word for reed. Uto-Aztecan tor. Quechua totora. It just doubles that first consonant. Kama, ka, am, and glottal stop is the root for create or beget in Egyptian. Kuma in Uto-Aztecan, it's missing the Kamai in Quechua. Qad, K and a D. And remember, the D changes to T. Coptic, it's kote, to go around or turn. Well, in Quechua, you've got kuti, turn and return. Also in Uto-Aztecan, kuti, turn, spin. I or a Y and P are the two consonants in Egyptian for count. And in Quechua, you've got yupa, exactly the consonants. In Uto-Aztecan, Kora has hipe, which is a little different. Also, sun in Egyptian means to suffer, and sunit, suffering or pain, affliction. In Uto-Aztecan, sunam is the word for heart or sad or suffer. So what happened is this word for suffer became the word for heart, being sad. And it's also in Quechua, sunku, with a different suffix, is the word for heart. So both Uto-Aztecan and Quechua have the sun, meaning heart, which is exactly the same root word as Egyptian sun. Also this pharyngeal H here for be festive, or for there to be a festival, to have a festival, chabi, okay? So it's always has a round vowel after this H. Uto-Aztecan, hupiya is the verb to sing. And of course, that's what you do at festivals, is you sing. In Quechua, however, upya, it lost the H, but the U is still the pharyngeal. It means to drink or be drunk. That's another thing you do at festivals. So a little different meaning, but the phonetics match. And that's also the boh, this pharyngeal H again, which causes round vowels, either O, U, or W. And the D goes to T and the B goes to P. So we would expect tapu or something like that. And that's exactly what we have in Quechua. Tap means to ask or ask for in Egyptian. Tapui, to ask in Quechua. Tapiwa, to ask for in Uto-Aztecan with that pharyngeal going to W, whereas here it's a round vowel. Here's that same word we saw in Muskogean. Hotpa, peace, to be peaceable, kind, for the sun to go down, be buried. Uto-Aztecan, we have hupi, peaceable, well-behaved. I showed you those. We also have hupa and hupa, shade. When something goes down or when it goes, behind something, it makes shade. In Muskogean, we have hopi, peaceable, be buried. I included those here. Quechua, upi, for the fire to go out, which means becomes dark. A lot of languages, Native American languages, have for the fire to go out means it gets dark. Okay, so the sun goes down, hupi, and in Quechua, upi means for the fire to go out. Upa, to be silent or innocent. That would take a little more explaining. Well, silence comes at night. Upai means spirit or shade or shadow. And notice that in Uto-Aztecan we have upa, shade. And let's go on here. Yeah. Hebrew, chem, you plural. Quechua, com. Uto-Aztecan, m. It lost that K, but as everything else. Pi, pi in Egyptian, that, this one, can also mean he or a pronoun. Same thing in Uto-Aztecan, pi, he, she, it. Exactly the same thing in Quechua, he, she, it. Shem, the word for name in Hebrew. Simi, word. The word of something is its name. Muke, to be smitten in Hebrew. Muki, in Uto-Aztecan, to be sick, die, afflicted. Various forms of smitten. Same thing in Quechua, muki, to suffer in silence. I think we'll maybe not go into detail on all of them. We might run out of time. Mil, with that pharyngeal H that causes round vowels, remember, M-I-L, round vowel, which is O or U, we would expect, is the Semitic word for salt, the Hebrew and Arabic and Aramaic word for salt. Well, in Quechua, you have milu, which is exactly parallel. M-I-L and the round vowel with M-I-L and a pharyngeal. Uto-Aztecan doesn't have that. It uses the Egyptian word for salt. Also in Semitic, haram means to woman or wife, or harem in Arabic, and warmi is word for woman in Quechua, and oerume means woman in one Uto-Aztecan language. And again, the O for the pharyngeal and RM. Here we have the pharyngeal, which is usually a round vowel, W or U, with RM. And in Quechua, WRM. Parol, again, another pharyngeal. You'd expect a round vowel, and that's exactly what we see. It means to fly, bloom, flower in Semitic. Puru, feather in Quechua. Puyao in Uto-Aztecan, to fly or feather, with the R going to Y, and again the pharyngeal to a W. Urawa or Lerawa in Semitic, Ein with a R and a W. The Ein being a round vowel, and it's the same thing in Quechua, and the RW deflates to a W in Uto-Aztecan, but the initial pharyngeal is there, so all of that is quite parallel. And I'm not sure, you're mainly interested in Choctaw, in Muskogean, so I'm not sure how much more of this you want to look at. This one, the second to last one is interesting. PSK means to be lame or to dislocate something or to limp. Okay, that is the root that the Passover, the word for Passover is built on, because when you pass over something or pass over a foot, you're limping on it. You know, you don't put weight on that foot, you pass over it. And so the real meaning is to be limp or lame, or uh, and when something is limp or lame, it doesn't work right, right? We in English, that word lame has come to mean in the slang these days something that's not good. I mean, like that's a lame excuse. How often do you hear things like that? That's a lame whatever. That word has come to mean a bad one. It's not good. It's deficient. Well, that's exactly the change of meaning in Uto-Aztecan. Uh, in Uto-Aztecan, pisika, to limp or be rotten or infected, or pus, the word for pus, and mucus in a lot of them. Same thing in Quechua, pisca, mucus, BC, insufficient, lacking. Uh, Interesting. Oh, let's see if there's anything really interesting here that you want to look at. Um, yeah, whole bunch of more interesting stuff. Um, this basara, the fourth one down, basar, to see in Arabic, and in Semitic, boser, the word for eye in Hebrew, if that cognate existed compared to the Arabic, and pusi, eye in Uto-Aztecan, and pusa in Uto-Aztecan is to wake up or open the eyes, and in Quechua you have bushai, to guide, show the way, you know, help them see. Ma, same in all languages. This rumi, stone, riamta in Aramaic, rima, riamta, stone, tumata in Uto-Aztecan, rock, rumi in Quechua, achar, this, well, those would take more explanation.
Brian, if I could intrude there, the ma for
Yeah.
what strikes me as being remarkable, because ma is also used in asking what in Chinese.
Oh, really? Uh-huh. Yeah, let's look at that one. It's right in the middle here. Ma means what, or it also means a relative pronoun, like give me the thing that you are using. Same thing in Uto-Aztecan, it means what, and also a relative pronoun. And in Quechua, ima means what. Oh, this is an interesting, the very next one.
Kumara.
Truffle. We have kamat in Semitic, or come with a K-M glottal stop. Kama or kamat. It means a truffle in Semitic. Now, a truffle grows underground on a root system like potatoes do. Potatoes grow underground on a root system. And it's interesting that in Uto-Aztecan, camota is the word for sweet potato. And in fact, in Aztec, it's camote, I think. And in Quechua, kumar is the word for sweet potato. It has the vowels turned around, kumar versus kamo. But yeah, looks like this. Both the Uto-Aztecan and the Quechua come from the Semitic word for truffle. And also that's in the Polynesian islands. You have
Yes.
kumar also in many Polynesian languages, meaning sweet potato, which came
Right.
from the Americas, which they borrowed the word also, meaning contact between the Americas and the Polynesian islands long before Columbus.
Yes, thank you. All right.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. Our last page. Yarok means has a lot of meanings. They all have to do with light color. In Semitic, yarok, green, pale, yellow, ash color, white. We have yora in Uto-Aztecan meaning green, and yurak in Quechua meaning white. Ta is the accusative suffix. Well, ta in Aramaic is the feminine definite article suffix. We saw it in some of these others. We saw it in kamota, for example, and in some of the others that means they're feminine nouns. But if it's a in Uto-Aztecan and in Quechua, it seems to have just become a noun suffix, not distinguishing feminine masculine, but just a noun suffix. And the noun suffix usually was with the object. So that's what makes it an accusative suffix. It's usually only on the object noun, not on the subject noun. Because often the subject is a person and not a inanimate noun. Anyway, here, let's see below, there are more similarities, but these suffice for a sample. Both Muskogean in the southeast United States and Quechua in South America's Andes both appear to have received an infusion of people or an infusion of speakers from Uto-Aztecan or something closely related to Uto-Aztecan. And I believe that's the end of the presentation. We can go to a fun-looking map while we talk about, take questions. Any questions, comments?
Wow, I am
Again, that's Uto-Aztecan.
I am so impressed that you're finding so many commonalities there. And for me, the most impressive, of course, is that the simple fact that you can pull the Tumara or Tumara to Polynesia and take the plant and its name to travel with it. I'm just that is a delightful connection. So it speaks.
Yeah, that is interesting that we had that Semitic word for truffle became the word for sweet potato in Uto-Aztecan in the north, in Quechua in South America, and in the Polynesian islands, all three.
Yeah, that's neat. That is exciting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's your chance. Turn on your get on the
Looks like we have a couple of
reactions and let's
hands
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah, Val Larson is first and then James Lucas. Go ahead, please, Val.
Okay, Brian, fill me in a little bit on these languages in Old World. First, is Egyptian's not a Semitic language, is it?
You're right. It is not. It is
So-
related to them. Egyptian and the Semitic languages are fairly close relatives. In fact, Old Akkadian has a number of interesting things in common with Egyptian. So they're distantly related, but no, Egyptian is not Semitic. You're right.
They probably would
Whereas
have
Hebrew,
a
Arabic,
lot.
and Aramaic are Semitic.
Yeah, right. But there would probably be a lot of borrowing between Egyptian and say Hebrew, wouldn't there? They were adjacent.
Oh, yeah, there was some. There was some. What's interesting
well-
is finding both Egyptian and Hebrew and Aramaic. It just matches what the Book of Mormon says, that the language that Lehi used was both Egyptian and Hebrew. But we
Right.
also find a lot of Aramaic because the Jews in northern Israel spoke Aramaic, or they were bilingual and spoke both Hebrew and Aramaic. So the fact that there's good evidence that Lehi and Ishmael's group probably spoke Aramaic as much, if not more, than they did Hebrew, because we find so much Aramaic in Uto-Aztecan that has to be my guess.
Well, the Aramaic was the lingua franca in Israel in Christ's time for sure, right? It had become the lingua
Exactly.
franca, and
Exactly, and it was a lingua franca throughout the Middle East in Moses's time too, and in ancient Israel's time, in the Northern Kingdom's time. Aramaic was spoken just east of the Manasseh land grant, and it was also spoken in Phoenicia to the west, and Northern Israel was right between the two. So Aramaic was kind of a international language clear back in Northern Israel's day. So right, it'd be
Okay,
That's why it's
okay,
not
so
surprising to find so much Aramaic in Uto-Aztecan.
now Hugh Nibley had a theory that Lehi was a trader and built his wealth trading. And if that were true, both the Egyptian and Aramaic would be languages that he might be conversant in. But so you're saying that the Aramaic would be, a lot of people have also said Lehi had northern or Israel roots, so as you've said. So that's where the Aramaic comes from. The Hebrew and the Egyptian would be the plates. Hebrew would have been certainly their scriptural language, even though they didn't have the scriptures written in that when they went. So this is how you get all these languages. And you have your account is the Aramaic came from from Israel, that when people came down at the destruction of the Israel tribes, and the Hebrew, I guess.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. What happened? What
Go ahead.
happened is they've found that Jerusalem expanded to about twice to three times its size at the destruction of the northern kingdom. What that means is that a lot of refugees escaped the destruction of the northern kingdom and came to Jerusalem, and that's why both Ishmael and Lehi are of Joseph, of the house of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, which is the northern kingdom tribes, not normally Jerusalem, and that's probably why they were there. That's what everybody figures, because they were probably descended from refugees, which was only a century before. It's probably Lehi's and Ishmael's grandparents, maybe, that fled south and right.
So the Babylonian captivity would have really given Aramaic a boost, but that doesn't help because Aramaic was like the Babylonian language, wasn't it?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
they already had American.
Let me
Right.
pass you off to
James Lucas and then Rainbow Eagle, please.
Okay. Now I'm going to just back up here, and I got only casual acquaintance with the field of linguistics, so I may be asking a real obvious kind of dumb question here, but my understanding is that there's only so many sounds that the human vocal system can produce. So there's going to be, as I understand it, some possibility of words being similar just by coincidence, just because there's so many human languages, but there's only so much sounds that the human vocal system can produce. So my question is this: in the field of linguistics, is there some kind of a baseline where you say, well, there's similar sounding words with similar meanings in all languages or most languages or in a broad swath of languages, and we just ascribe that to coincidence. And
You're
then
right.
when we're doing similarity comparisons, we say, well, these X and Y languages are more similar because they're above this baseline. I mean, is there such a baseline in linguistic studies where you just say, well, there's just a certain amount of coincidence in similarities between languages that we have to factor out when we're doing comparisons like this to see if some particular languages are similar? That's a question.
Right.
Does that
That's
exist?
exactly right. That any two languages will have a few words coincidentally kind of the same. And what linguists have to do is eliminate that by two means. One is exactly what you said. It's usually like 2 or 3% will be, of any two languages, 2 or 3% of the words will be coincidentally kind of similar. So the similarities have to be usually above 10% for linguists to even pay attention to it. And what we have in Uto-Aztecan is between 70 and 90%. So it's really a strong case. The other thing that they guard against that is that linguists have discovered that when languages change, they change in consistent ways so that they create sound correspondence. So you can't just say it kind of sounds like, you've got to track how the sounds have changed, and there has to be a consistency among the sound correspondence. So it could look very different, but it would fit the correspondences, even though it might look different. For example, hippopotamus, is the Greek word for river horse. Hippo is horse, and potamos is river in Greek. And the hippo is cognate to English horse, actually, and to Latin equus, because Latin qua corresponds to Greek p. So even though they all look different, the system of sound correspondences shows that they really are cognates descended from the same word, according to how the different languages changed those sounds. So hippo, equus, Latin equus, and English horse are all related, believe it or not. So yeah, so between sound correspondence, system of sound correspondences, and getting above 10% are two safeguards against coincidence.
Okay, and then another real quick question about your broader work. Uto-Aztecan in from your map here is appears to be primarily a southwestern language family in North America, erasing that barrier between the Anglo and Latin Americas, which of course didn't exist anciently. It's clearly looks to be, on the west side of our continent. And many of the folks who like a Mesoamerican setting for the Book of Mormon draw upon, their theories, put the Book of Mormon in other parts of Mesoamerica. There's some people who maintain that the Nephites were very close to, they weren't Maya, but they were very close to the Maya, or they put them down in the highlands of Guatemala and so forth, which at least on your little map here seems to be beyond the Uto-Aztecan language territory. And as I understand it, and again, I've got no expertise here, Mayan and the languages of Guatemala are really quite different languages, are a different language family than the Uto-Aztecan. So I'm just asking, is that one? Am I on the case? Am I on the base here? And secondly, have you done this kind of analysis to see if there's much Hebrew and Aramaic in these other Mesoamerican language families that, as I understand it, are actually quite separate from Uto-Aztecan?
Right. Yeah, I've looked at most of the languages in the Americas, and yeah, Mayan is in a completely different language family, and so is Mixe-Zoquean. In fact, if you can see my little thing here,
Yes.
most BYU archaeologists put Zarahemla probably right there, either along the Usumacinta River or the what was the other one?
The Grijalva.
Anyway, it's to the east of that. What that?
Grijalva.
Right, Grijalva. Yeah, along one of those rivers, about right here. And what makes that really interesting is I see evidence of Uto-Aztecan actually being descended from the Nephite-Mulekite merger. And you'll remember in Hagos' day, they started a shipping industry of launching into the West Sea to sail emigrants to the lands northward. Well, there are 11 branches. There's 40 languages, but 11 branches. A branch is a group of more closely related languages. 11 branches of Uto-Aztecan, and 10 of the 11 are on the west coast. Only Nawa is scattered all over down here, which makes me think that Nawa really is leftover of the Nephite nation, that it used to be here, but they were killed off here, but not all of these got killed off. There are 1.5 million speakers of Nawa, of different Nawa dialects in Mexico and further south. But all of these other 10 up here, are way out of the way when the final destruction happened. And all of these in the United States all came out of the Los Angeles area. Linguists have established that. They can prove it and show it, that all of these, in fact, let me get to my Uto-Aztecan map here. Yeah, the fact that we have so many here and so diverse means they started here and became very different. All of these out here are similar. That means they broke off and spread out later. In fact, Colorado Ute over here is very closely related to Kawaisu right there in Southern California. Kawaisu right here is more closely related to Colorado Ute than it is to all of these right next to it. That shows that they've been here a long time and they spread from here out. So all of those languages originated on the West Coast. So my thinking is that, this is Book of Mormon language family, certainly, and that these are the folks that launched into the West Sea, sailed to the lands northward, and were completely out of the way of the destruction whenever it happened. And plus, these are smaller numbers. Nawa, all of these tribes have a few thousand. Tarahumara has about 50, or some of these have 30 or 50 or 1,000 or so. But Nawa has 1.5 million speakers of various Nawa languages. So yeah, you're right. And so if we look at this map, Book of Mormon land down here somewhere. Yeah, these are folks that launched into the West Sea, got out of the way. These are survivors of whatever happened. The Muskogeans, it's not very far. In fact, from the northernmost, another thing you'll notice in the Book of Mormon is a lot of them lived in the land northward. Mormon and Amaron, who gave him charge of the plates, both lived in the land northward. Mormon's dad had to take his son on a field trip to go cross the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, go down into the land southward to show him Zarahemla, show him where the Nephite nation originated, because he didn't know. And but hey, from here around the Gulf Coast to this Mississippi River, you always have to have fresh water. Everybody has to live next to fresh water when you carry it from a pot to your house. And so here at the mouth of the Mississippi, you have a lot of rivers branching out both east and west and so forth. And so the Muskogeans, it wasn't that far, just going around there, and there they were. And the Uto-Aztecans, they simply went northwest, the Muskogeans northeast, and the Quechua to the south. To the south, in fact, another interesting thing is that John Sorensen, he was BYU's most prolific archaeologist and publishing a Book of Mormon stuff. He says there's evidence that right here in Ecuador, Peru area, that there appears to have been a shipping industry. In fact, I'm gonna have to go back between the two maps. You take this spot right here in southern Mexico. That's where he thinks the harbor was, where they did this shipping industry. But it could have been over here. He says there's a lot of interesting archaeological stuff common between this spot and this spot. And that would be a smart way to go between those two places. It's too bad I don't have a map that shows both. Is you just cut across that shortcut across the ocean, and you miss a whole bunch of tough terrain. I mean, Panama has huge mountains. It's rough going.
The Andes go all the way up
shipping
into
industry probably went northward and southward. So these folks might be coming from by boat also. All of these Quechua speakers, I don't know, or the mixing with whatever was there, and they became Quechua.
So,
Does that answer your question, kind of?
yeah, and so one last question. Well, I need to let Rainbow Eagle come in here, who actually knows probably what he's talking about, not like me. But okay, in your your theory, what were the Lamanites then? I mean,
Oh, they're right here. I think the Maya were a Jaredite Lamanite mix. So yeah, the Lamanites were all around here. I mean, it says that they had them surrounded. It says that their land was nearly surrounded by water. Well, here you've got a neck there, you've got a neck to the south. Everything else is nearly surrounded by water. So yeah, the Lamanites were here, 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 and my opinion is that the Mayan or leftover Jaredites mixed with Lamanites, because another thing that Sorensen points out is that agricultural people always multiply faster than hunter gatherers. And it says, that the Lamanites were, they just hunted meat in the forest. And whereas the Nephites, they were planting crops. And so they should be multiplying faster. But the fact that the Lamanites were so much more numerous means that probably they went and mixed with these larger tribes, the Mayan peoples, and the whole bunch of them, became Lamanites, even though they were speaking. My guess is that Otomanguean and Mayan and Muskogean and a bunch of other language families are leftover Jaredites. You got to remember that even though it says they were all destroyed, that was just the ones they knew of. There would be a lot of people. They were here long enough that a lot of people could scatter over North America and South America and not even get invited to the final bash, not even know about the final destruction. Besides, a whole bunch right in the area that decided, hey, I know better than that. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to take my family and get out of here. So yeah, there are lots of survivors of the Jaredites. In fact, there might be Jared might have more posterity in the Americas than Lehi. But nevertheless, we're focusing on Lehi. I mean, the language forces us to focus on Lehi because we don't know Jared's language.
So okay, so so with the Lamanites, the actual Lamanites, the actual people of Laman and Lemuel, who may not have been super numerous, nonetheless, they would have started off speaking Hebrew and Aramaic, just like the rest of their families. So you're saying that when they mixed in, that in other words, in the Eastern Mesoamerican languages like Mayan and Quechua and so forth, that no Hebrew or Aramaic, or apparently very, very little Hebrew or Aramaic survived from the Lamanites that they mixed with. Is that sort of what
that's my guess.
say?
I have looked at Mayan, and but if the person were to look at it longer than I have, there might be some vocabulary that survived in that mixture, but it might be so close to that 3% that you couldn't. It'd be difficult to make a case of it. But you also got to remember that these folks are mixing all the time. So like the Nephites are a mixture of Nephite Lamanites, and the Lamanites are a mixture of Nephites, Lamanites, and all of them have mixed with the Jaredites some, and all of them have mixed with Bering Strait blood. I mean, there's a lot of Bering Strait peoples that have entered the Americas and mixed with everything. So yeah, it's everybody's a mixture, including us Europeans who. My wife and I, our kids have about 20 different ethnicities in them, according to our DNA analyses. But so yeah, they're all Lehi, but they're mixed with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Okay, I will pass the baton here to the man who actually knows something.
Can I just make a quick comment before we go to Rainbow Eagle's question? Because it's related to what you were just talking about. The Lamanites always seem to put pressure on the Nephites from the south in the Book of Mormon account. So that would lead you to expect the Nephites, if they were moving to get away, moving toward the north. But the Lamanites being in the south means you might actually get some of them being pushed to the south later, because when everything's they got pressure put on them too at some point. And so you might get Nephites, the Uto-Aztecan with the Nephites, and maybe some of those things in the south, the Lamanites, because they did start with the same base language mix. Just
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. The the Nephites were to the north, and the Lamanites to the south. So yeah, Maya and everything south would probably have Lamanite mixture, and in fact, I'll show you something else that's interesting. There's the Pano-Takanan language family. Let me see if I can see which one it is here. I can't read that. Print is too small, but yeah, that blue stuff right there appears to be a break off of the Nahua or the Aztec branch, not of Uto-Aztecan generally, but the Aztec branch. And it might be that they, fled the destruction going south. I don't know, but they're a break off from the Nahua branch. Have a whole bunch of interesting stuff similar to that. But you're right. A lot of these Native Americans in this area would be part mixtures of Lamanites and other. And yeah, you're exactly right. Rainbow.
Okay, ready for Rainbow Eagle now?
Hello, everybody.
Hey there. Nice to
Hello.
be with us.
It's nice to be able to hear a lot of these things. And Brian, thank you so much. There was so much there that I am going to have to really study. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to send me those slides so that I can dig in to my resources. Also, Brian,
Okay.
I don't believe I came in a little bit later. I had a call come in. I don't believe I saw any of your resources where you got your information. That might be helpful for a little bit of study on my part.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can send you that too. They're at they're the best dictionaries of those Muskogean languages, and yeah, I could send you a list of them. I didn't put them on here.
Well, I'm going to go with a Choctaw kind of frame of reference. First of all, I'm going to be the usual. I heard my father, who was full-blood Okla Choctaw, he would always say, here is a couple of Indian words for you, so that somebody is taking something from the moment. And so being able to say Oklahoma is two Choctaw words for Okla is our old name, and Homa means red. So there you are. If I give you no more education than that, you're just fine. The other aspect of things is that it seems like the research that is presented is a migration from the east, because we're looking at Egyptian, maybe because it gets kind of a far place to go from the west. And I've got something that Paul's going to be happy about, and that is that when my father met a number of Hawaiian delegations at World Conference, he was so excited that he was able to say that in the, we say, Okla Choctaw tribe, there's at least 50 words that are identical in speaking as well as in meaning as Hawaiians. Okay, Paul, here we go. This is where you get to have some fun here, because there seems to be a trail of, and I'll be giving this more in detail. I'm just kind of doing thumbnail kinds of things of the Polynesian that came into the Hawaiian. A lot of people came into the Hawaii, and that I actually saw a picture that one of the Hawaiians said, you ought to go to this museum and see this particular picture. And it was a picture almost identical to my father in his looks. And then, of course,
Oh,
I'd like to say it's probably the good looks that the Okla Choctaw gave to the Hawaiians, well, or maybe even the music, because that's a very strong emphasis in the Okla Choctaw tradition is lots and lots of singing, all night sings. That's a real important part of the culture. So I'm just saying that I will give some emphasis about more of a migration from the West. And a part of that, not only because the language and the pictures and the things is that, and I liked what you said, Brian, about, I'm going to remember that, and the land surrounded by water. Oh, well, that kind of fits the going across the Pacific Ocean by way of the Hawaiian Islands and landing in Central America. And they
uh-huh.
and part of our story is that whenever we landed, we all landed on the shore and dried out. We had enough water stuff. Okay. Yeah. So that's probably what I can kind of give an emphasis. I do wonder about the language, but so let me go to the language. I've just kind of whet the appetite for some of the culture that I think is very meaningful with that. Okay, let's go to there is a kind of a guttural sound that, and I think I shared this with you, Brian, whenever we had our short moment together, is that whenever we didn't have a word for goodbye, we just said the word okay, and that got put into the English language. But we said that with an okay, okay, a guttural
Uh-huh.
sound, in the throat kind of sound.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Semitic languages and Egyptian have those deep gutturals also. In fact, the pharyngeals line and the pharyngeal H and and there's plenty of gutturals in both Semitic
Right.
and Egyptian.
My question would be, how do you put into English, into phonetics, a guttural sound?
Well, one for example is the a G with a dot over it is represents a with kind of a friction on that deep sound. Uh, the pharyngeal H ended up being a W in or a round vowel in both Muskogean and Uto-Aztecan and Quechua because the same thing happened in Phoenician. The line became O of all the alphabets that followed the Phoenician alphabet. And so
Okay.
it was kind of a natural way for it to change.
Right. Now, the other thing that comes to my mind, I've made a bunch of notes, they're all over the place here, is that there's this neat culture thing that I've heard the elders speak of it, and I also follow that with being able to carry a story. And there was a strong emphasis upon what we call oral tradition, which is, of course, oral. But it was
Uh-huh.
often in a way that those who it was being spoken to, if they were to repeat, let's say, some teachings, they would repeat it almost word for word. So this idea of a kind of a gossip line really didn't have the presence in a lot of tribalism. And so
Uh-huh.
keying off from that, Brian, is that the language itself was a very, very important utterance that you tried to learn it from sound rather than from reading. And
Uh-huh.
then, I sent you some resources there. Had you seen this Choctaw uh, book that I sent you a picture of? Question?
Um, I did look at one or two of the things you sent me, and I think trying to remember, maybe I didn't catch the book one, but
That's
I haven't
okay.
finished looking at them yet.
That's okay.
But
I am suggesting that whenever there is an old tradition of an oral word for word sound copying, then it gets into a written thing. Of course, the Choctaw language was put together, as we've talked, in the 1810, 1815s. And it was a Christian missionary that wanted to be able to have something to put into schools, and put together the Choctaw dictionary, the first one. Again, it's English words housed within the phonetic structure. And I would say that's a pretty good leap from an oral sound frame of reference to a written material. So that's what I'm wondering about. At least I can only kind of have some, Choctaw, Okla Choctaw frame of reference with that, because it was so important to be able to teach it in an oral setting rather than in a reading one.
Yeah. Figuring out how to write and record languages that don't have a writing system is has always been, something that needs to be figured out, and they've done a pretty good job most of the time. But you're right that some sounds just don't get recorded entirely accurately. For example, those guttural sounds you're talking about, oftentimes it just shows up as an H, something
Yeah.
in the throat. And so yeah,
Well,
some
it was the
systems are better
Cherokee.
than others.
Yeah, the Cherokee were the ones that had the first written language, and that's on the East Coast. And you can kind of imagine how the helpfulness and the influence of English was certainly on the East Coast, but that was Sequoia. That's Cherokee. For the Choctaw, translation from an oral into a printed word came later. So that's the part that I don't have as much study. I'm going to give us some study for next week. I'm going to take it. By the way, in a prayer, I noticed the word shalom bish. That also, as your research was in spirit, and so.
Yeah.
Shalom bish, holy topama, ish mente palacha, hat takil basha, piaha, ish piok palashki. You see, even that is trying to be exactly as my father recorded it. We lost a lot of the kind of the first voice of the language, obviously, after 50 or 60 years. But the recording does give an indication of how to learn from sounds rather than from the printed word. Okay, that's a little bit I don't know whether I've got some notes here. I just want to make sure that Paul heard about the Polynesian connection.
Oh, thank you, Rainbow.
Of course, I can say it was the Okla Choctaw that gave the Hawaiians their good looks and their singing ability and their joy for that. Right. Okay. We had.
I am particularly intrigued, Rainbow Eagle, with your observation about the musical patterns that may actually reach across those cultures, because that's another area to have a musicologist that could help us explore those with some particular insight would be, I think, extremely useful. Just as having a linguist show us that there's connections between the language, then the singing styles, I would be confident, probably will all have comparable kinds of similarities.
They would. Another culture thing, and I don't mean to, challenge my brother Brian there, but a lot of the cultures, whether they came from the Book of Mormon time or came later, it became very important to not intermarriage outside of your tribe. That's almost a given for most of the tribes, is a very watchfulness and a very carefulness that the children were to marry within the tribe outside of the clan. There was a clan system that you didn't marry if someone was the same clan, but you did marry the same tribe and nation. Now you see that bumps up against the intermarriage business that's happened now more
see,
than
see,
the
the thing
tradition
is,
was very strong to
you're right that a
blood.
lot of groups discouraged it, but it's still happened a lot, you know, like Jewish groups and Mormon groups. And I mean, yeah, a lot of cultures discourage it, which probably helps. I mean, keeps the percentage down. But another study I did was even just like 2% of each generation marrying outside, and that's only, you know, 1 in every 50 people, which is very few. Within a few generations, you've got a lot of mixture over the generations. And so yeah, you're right that cultural thing could exist, but it wouldn't keep it from happening over a period of generations.
Right, and you can see if your culture holds a lot of meaningful living uh, 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 living precepts. Way to live is that if you intermarried, then you've got now two things to teach your children. And that I've heard that quite often, is that's the reason why, if you're going to keep the culture in place and nurturing in especially village life, then it is not, you don't mix the blood. Now, I don't know whether that came much later from the Book of Mormon story, and of course, now we're seeing a repeat of intermarriage of all different races and religions and things like that. But that's one. The other thing is that to speak the language was so important, to make it exactly as it was spoken to you. So the sharing is another issue that I wonder about. Did it happen early? But later on, tribalism, you were to hang in there and hold on to your uniqueness and your tribalism, and not have a sharing of traditions. There was sharing of stories and sharing of some songs, but there's certain traditions. See, the Choctaw also had a flat place on their head. Those that were leaders. Guess what? The Maya also, I've talked with them. I talked with the Maya elder at Chichen Itza, and they have a tradition of having a board put on the head. And so that my father's always said that we have some connection with the Maya because of certain things. And I guess if you want to get a little sticky with me, you can call me a flathead. No, that's a joke, okay? But
You're right. There's been other evidence. A lot of anthropologists and archaeologists have found evidence in the Choctaw region of Mayan influence, which means, you know, they think they took boats across that way, which is certainly possible. But Book of Mormon peoples that are, say, Lamanite / Mayan, or the Ammonites, you know, the anti-Lehi Nephites, they were Lamanites that became friendly and joined the church, and you know, they might have had some Mayan influence, or just other Mayan influence that didn't have anything to do with that. so yeah, there's other people that are saying the Mayans have infiltrated the Muskogean areas, which again is a degree of mixing, whether gradual or a sudden merger of peoples, or gradual
And
over
of course,
time.
yeah, the Maya had those wonderful stone structure things. Well, the Choctaws have, we have a sacred mound put together by the women, which is of course out of soil. And how that would be another similarities. But I've kind of spoken of a number of things that is how to step back and take a look at how is it that English fully represents the spoken word. I would have issues with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah, English alphabet doesn't really fully represent very many languages, and they try to adjust it with dots and lines, and which helps
Yeah.
to a degree. But yeah, exactly. Recording it is debatable in a lot of languages.
And we had a migration of coming and being wet, and also a sacred leaning pole that took us, you like the North business, from the Central America, and it pointed to the north. Every morning, the elders would see it, and it would be pointing to the north, and then it would finally point to the east. And then it comes to the big river. We called it Michissipockany, but that's Mississippi. And we thought we don't want to have to get into water again. But we put rafts together, and we had our home place in the central Mississippi. Okay, I've talked enough. Anyway, thank you for your research. I'd like to get enough so that I can kind of compare from the books that I have. Thank you, Brian.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, I can send you the PowerPoint to you.
Okay.
Okay, Gary Walker, go ahead, please.
Very, very interesting presentation, Brian. Thank you. I have a bachelor's and master's from BYU in archaeology. When did you live in Blanding?
I'm still here. I've been here 50 years.
Oh, you're
Moved
still
here
there?
in 1974, and I'm still here in 2025. So yeah, we moved here 50 years ago.
Okay, that must
But
be
I
why
did
your
grow up here.
name, that must
I
be
grew
why
up
your
in,
name is familiar to me, because I was the first curator at Edge of the Cedars. And I was in Blanding from February 77 to August of 81.
okay.
And
I went to I left for graduate school in 78 and came back in 82. So we did overlap a year, but I left to go to graduate school in linguistics and Hebrew and Arabic just a year after you came. So yeah, we overlapped a little bit, but missed, but I was gone a lot of the
it
time that
didn't
you were
really
here.
cross paths, because what is now the San Juan campus of Eastern Utah really didn't exist then. There were a few classes taught,
You're right. In a
and
trailer.
it just the building that they were in housed the Shumway collection, and I went in there to work some on that just before I left. But so we really didn't cross paths, but we did sort of. Where are you from originally?
I was born in New York and I grew up in Indiana and Hawaii and Los Angeles. And we moved to Utah when my dad was hired onto the BYU music faculty when I was in 8th grade. So I grew up all over through elementary school and junior high, and we moved to Provo about when I was starting high school.
Okay,
And I
I'm
then I
from
served in
Ely,
Michigan
Nevada,
and
and there's some,
Navajo. I served in Michigan and
yeah.
Navajo, and then married and got a bachelor's at BYU, and then came to Blanding right after my bachelor's, and then we had about 3 kids by then, and then I went back up to graduate school, and from 78 to 82.
Okay. There's some Stubbses in Ely, but it doesn't look like they were related at all. They weren't members
Stubbs
of
is
the
where?
church either. So um,
Where was that?
in Ely, Nevada. So
They might have been. They could have been related. I'm
it,
I'm related to most of the Stubbses in Utah, and I keep finding more. Not that there's a lot, but that Stubbs name sticks out.
on your Uto-Aztecan map, where the U is for Utah-Aztecan, that's where Ely is. Um, on
Yeah,
the
I've been through Ely a lot. It's
yeah,
it's just across the
we had
border from.
Shoshone and Southern Paiute and Western Shoshone all together there
Yeah,
in Ely, So all
yeah.
right,
My
appreciate
brother
your
used to.
presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, my brother used to live in Fallon, Nevada, so we passed through Delta and Ely real often, not driving to his house.
Okay, as fast as you could, right?
Yeah, it was a nice straight highway most of the time.
It is.
Okay, Paul, we're back to you. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. And let me thank both Brian and Rainbow Eagle for getting together on this combination, because I think it's just delightful that we can bridge our gaps and have personal interactions and learn from each other in this way. To have specialists be able to appreciate each other's contributions is one of the real benefits of this kind of a forum. And I so much appreciate you two gentlemen setting it up so that we get Brian today and the Rainbow Eagle next week to get a chance to respond and interact. What a blessing and benefit it is to have both of you as part of our activities as participants and presenters. So thank you. I do have a comment.
Yes.
I'm a little concerned that we give Book of Mormon peoples and linguists too much credit, because I think we can be pretty confident that there's at least 20,000 years of occupation of these lands. And with
Yeah, there's lots of people besides Lehi. In fact, like I say, there's these 3 language families, but there are 190 different language families in the Americas. So, these 3 are what, 2%?
Thank you. That's a point of clarification that I think needs to be emphasized, because those of us that are devoted to the Book of Mormon are inclined, I think, to give it too much give it too much historical precedence when there's more people who I think generally would have been counted among the Lamanites from the fact that the Book of Mormon comes from a Nephite perspective, and so they don't get identified as specific cultures, and yet because the Nephites were looking at Lamanites as all the people that were hunters and gatherers, then I think that there must have been a good deal of intermingling there. And
Yeah.
having been one of those 2% that married outside the culture in spite of the opposition, I would like to highlight the benefits of that, because to be able to have the benefit of hybridization, the benefit of cross-cultural enrichment, there's a health benefit, I think, that accrues among other things, and so yes, I do understand that there's some strong inclination for us to try to seek the purebreds, and we thought my wife was pretty close to pure Tahitian until we got the DNA study and found that her majority DNA was Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Polynesians came out of Southeast Asia, so they would have a lot of Southeast Asia DNA. I might also mention that a lot of us, if not all of us, are more mixtures than we realize. For example, I'm English from England, but the English, you go back in my genealogy, and I have lots of Irish marrying English or Scottish marrying English. Now, Scottish and Irish are Celtic. languages and peoples, and the English are Germanic. And so those are two quite different peoples, even though they're distantly related and Indo-European, but they're quite different. So there are a lot of Irish English marriages in my ancestry, and they, even though they're basically Caucasian white, there's different cultures, different languages, different. Yeah,
Well,
that's all.
If you stop the screen sharing, I can't see enough people to be sure that there's not somebody else watching. I guess Deb is watching for that, but I'd like to be able to let people, if there is any other question or comment.
Monty has a question. Go ahead, Monty.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not a question, it's just a statement. The part of England that my family is from originally was conquered by the Danes, the Vikings, many times, and so I found that I'm half English, half Great Dane.
Yeah. Well, see, my wife is from Argentina, so a lot of people might look at that as a mixed marriage. Two different cultures, yes, and Spanish versus English, two different languages. However, the English are a mix of Celtic and Germanic, and the Romans, the Latin Romans, were conquered. I mean, they ruled the island for several hundred years, so there was certainly a lot of Roman blood among the English. So I'm a Celtic, Germanic, Latin mix, and my wife, the Celtiberians, ruled Spain for a while, and the Germanic, the what do they call it? The Visigoths were Germanic, and of course the Roman Latins were there too. So the people of Spain are a Celtic, Germanic, Latin mix. So my wife and I are really just distant cousins, three different ways. We both have Germanic ancestry, we both have Celtic ancestry, we both have Roman ancestry. So I don't know if we're a mixed marriage or not when we cousins three different ways.
That's fascinating. Well, the whole topic is fascinating, and I'm delighted with it. I'm looking forward to next week where we get to continue the discussion. And so thank you, Brian, for providing such an excellent background for that and for volunteering this pairing, because it's just delightful to be able to have two sessions feed on each other that come to us from people that know something about what they're talking about. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other hands up there, Deb?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm not seeing any. I'm gonna stop the screen share.
Okay, well then we're 9:45, and so it's time to get me ready for heading back to Lamoni tomorrow. And so, deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. Oh Lord, I want to go to the promised land. The promised land, the place and people of peace. Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground. And may we all find our way across that deep river to the campground and actually to the promised land of Zion. Good night, friends.